Alright, how's it going everyone? So I'm presuming you're here for this on-demand class where we're going to talk about how to become an automation and controls expert in any industry, whether that's smart home, automation, BMS, HVAC or industrial controls from scratch. But yeah, I think this has got lots of useful information in, and I know if you're interested in becoming an automation and controls expert, you're definitely going to get a lot of value from this. So before we get properly into it, just to let you know that the examples that I'm referencing within the first part of this class are all based from the UK. So if you're watching this from other countries, I'm sure a lot of the same things apply, but obviously you'll have to do your own sort of research to verify these things in your own country. So what are we going to do today? What are we going to focus on? So my goal is for you guys to have a much clearer understanding about these industries, about the opportunities available around these industries, and how you can start making progress into these industries. I want to prove that there's massive opportunity, there really is massive opportunity, and that it is possible. Like, people are doing this, and I want to show you those people. And some of these people, they don't have formal qualifications, so please don't believe that you need to have formal qualifications to be able to firstly get into this industry, but also progress and thrive in these industries, because you don't. I know you don't. Next, we're going to go through some of the biggest roadblocks that people and actually myself have had whilst trying to progress into these industries, and then hopefully I'll address how to look at them, how to overcome them, so you can use these techniques to help you if you're experiencing these roadblocks. And then finally, specifically, how to start working towards becoming an expert in these industries today. So if you don't know me, guys, name's Chris Guyatt, Be Automation. It's not about me, it's all about you guys, but just a quick intro for the things that are relevant is I've been working in designing and building control systems across all of these industries for the last 4 to 5 years. I've worked in all of the main industries, so smart home, industrial controls and BMS. I worked for Loxon UK for 1.5 years, and the systems that I currently use at the moment are Loxon, Control 4, KNX and Siemens. So let's get started. So firstly, I want to prove to you guys that there is opportunity, and there's actually loads of opportunity. And the examples or the things that I'm going to talk about, I don't want to just give you sort of anecdotes and stories from my own experience. I want to actually give you things that you can research yourself. You can go and have a look at yourself and verify for yourselves that yes, there is opportunity out there. So the first thing, and this is a bit of a weak example, I know, but bear with me. It's going to get better from here on out. But the first one is Google Trends. So if you just search smart home in Google Trends, you'll see that there's an upward, I was going to say curve, it's not a curve, but an upward trend. That would make sense, being that it's Google Trends. Upward trend in the last 5 years to 6 years, where smart home is becoming more of a thing in consumers' awareness, and they're obviously getting more. They're looking into it. They're searching this term in Google, and you would have thought they were getting more educated. So, firstly, that's kind of an indication that there's more people being aware and educated, and potentially there's a demand for it. So let's stick with the smart home market just quickly. This is actually the smallest market of opportunity. But if you did want to focus on this area, this industry, I just want to give you a quick tip on who the best people are to target if you did want to focus here. So, architects, developers, lighting designers, interior designers, and M&E designers or specifiers. I wouldn't recommend focusing on private clients or self-builders. It's not to say don't, but the people that I know that are doing really well within these industries, they've built relationships with one or a couple of these types of people, these specifiers. And the reason why you want to target these people and build those relationships over, say, just a one-off self-builder or private client, I'm kind of just giving it away there. But these specifiers are going to give you repeat business. Like, you build the relationship once, and obviously you nurture that relationship, and they're going to be able to give you repeat business. Whereas a private client, self-builder, most likely they're just building a one-off home. So you put in the same level of effort in building that relationship, but it's only going to yield one project, maybe two. Obviously word of mouth and all the rest of it, but the people that I know that are successful, they are in with an architect, developer, or one of these other types of specifiers. I'm not used to talking, guys, so I need to keep hydrated as I go through this. So bear with me. So like I said, I'd say probably the least amount of opportunity within all the things that I'm going to show you. But that's what I'd do if I did want to stick or focus on smart home automation. So next, proof of opportunity. So earlier on in June, I went to CEF Live and the Manufacturing and Engineering Week. And I spoke to two of the biggest players, big corporate players in the game. First one being ABB. ABB, they turn over about 30 billion per year. That was their revenue for last year. And I spoke to one of their sales managers, Darren Foreman, who's the area sales manager of Scotland. And just to give you a taste of what they're focusing on this year, well, not specifically this year, but focusing on in general. And what he told me was energy optimization for industrial and commercial buildings. So what he meant by that was replacing direct online starters for drives in the industrial space, and then also focusing on building management systems to manage energy and buildings and building controls within the commercial space. And they've actually recently bought this company called Cylon, who are a BMS manufacturer. So that's what ABB are focusing on. And then the second people I spoke to were Wago. You can see they really let themselves down here. They're only turning over $100 million last year, so really need to up their game a little bit. But similarly to ABB, what they're focusing on is energy monitoring and management and building control. That's their main focus. And I spoke to Dimitro Sham, who is their automation and product manager. So that's a seed for what I'm about to talk about. So to summarize, these two massive multi-billion, multi-million dollar corporate businesses, they're focusing on two things really: energy optimization and building control. Now that poses the question, why are these big guys focusing in these areas? Now it might be obvious to some of you, but I'm going to lay it all out for you, because it's very interesting where this goes. So it's obvious because it's obvious that there's opportunity in those areas, and the obvious one is that energy costs have skyrocketed in the last few years, 400% cost increase, and I'm sure we've all felt it. I certainly have. We've also adding on to that, after doing a bit of research, in the UK, 40% of our carbon emissions is from buildings. So to be more energy efficient, we obviously need to start thinking about reducing that our carbon footprint, particularly around buildings, and making them more energy efficient, controlling things more efficiently. Furthermore, laws and legislation being implemented by government. So big thing is getting to net zero by 2050. So government putting laws and legislations in place. I've got a few of them here. So this one specifically requiring landlords to ensure that commercial buildings are meeting certain energy efficiency standards. This is something that Darren at ABB was talking about. Large organisations having to undertake energy assessments every 4 years to identify areas where they can conserve energy. And then also there might be something brought in place sooner than 2050, as early as 2030, which could bring about penalties for businesses that aren't actually putting things in place to achieve that net zero figure by 2050. So just to summarise that there's government laws and legislations being put in place to ultimately force businesses into doing things to reduce their carbon footprint. Also, government are providing grants and investment for organisations. So here, for example, a grant of £50 million for energy efficient building updates in schools, sixth forms and colleges. So essential work to be done in beyond general maintenance for managing energy consumption within the future. Again, it's all around reaching that net zero by 2050. So with those things in mind, what are some opportunities for small businesses like us? Just a second. And now I'm going to be talking mainly around commercial and industrial industries. I'm not talking about home automation here. And this really is where the big opportunities are. So this is where I would be focusing my time and effort in building a business if I was just getting started now. So firstly, touched on it briefly earlier, but first thing is upgrading DOLs to drives. So direct online starters, so star, delta, motor, pump, fan, all being controlled with direct online starters, replacing them or those to drives. And ultimately what that is controlling the speed of those pumps, those motors, those fans. What you find is a lot of these, let's just say motors, they are running far quicker than they actually need to be, but because you've got no way to control the speed of these motors using a DOL, they're just using far more energy than they actually need to. So using a drive, you can dial that down and you can actually modulate them based on demand. And it's a very easy thing to install because you don't have to do anything really out in the field. All the cable infrastructure remains the same. The motor, fan, pump, whatever stays in place, and all it is changing over the DOL back at the control panel for an inverter, a drive, a VFD, whatever you want to call it. So it's really easy, a really easy thing to implement, and as you'll see, there's lots of opportunity. So examples. So this is from a company that I used to work for as an electrical controls engineer, focusing on industrial ventilation. And you can see here just the amount of kilowatts per hour being used just using a standard star delta DOL. And then you can see if you introduce a inverter or variable frequency drive, just set at a constant pressure, so dialed back to just run the fan or whatever it is at an optimized speed, without going over what's needed, for in this example, not increasing the pressure more than what's needed, just dialing it back to be optimized, you can save straight away 10 kilowatts per hour. And then if you go further, I won't go into the details of this smart air system, but if you go further into introducing modulation into that fan control, you can get the kilowatts per hour down even further. Another example is, and I found this through Googling, so I typed into Google how to make my commercial building more energy efficient for net zero, and this, I don't know if it will still come up, but this is the first thing that came up from quantum controls. And so I clicked on the ad, I read through the case study, which I'll talk about in a second, but what was interesting for me is, and the point I'm trying to make here, is there's businesses out there that are spending money to advertise when people search for things like that. So if they're spending money for advertisement, it's obviously yielding them some results. They're obviously getting leads and ultimately business through advertising like this, which is telling me that, again, there's opportunity. There's people typing these sort of things in to Google. These guys are coming up, and then they're capturing them as leads and obviously nurturing them into sales. Also, I did a bit of research into this web page, and that was built on the 4th of January. So it's all very new. Last 6 months, 8 months, it's been there, ready. I don't know how long they've been running the ads, but it's relevant for today, and to me that says that there's demand there. Just quick, I recommend having a look at quantum controls, but just quickly, the case study, they basically had a business that had an electricity cost increase of 800% for whatever reason. These guys were able to just replace their motor control with drives, and that saved them just under 100k per year. And obviously that's going to be savings moving forward. So when you can demonstrate that you can save businesses that sort of money per year, and it's quickly going to return their initial investment, it's a very easy sell. Very easy. If you can save people money and they can see that investment coming back to them in a certain time window, then very easy to sell. Next one. School, BMS and HVAC. Now, I want to focus more on the schools here, but you can still apply this to other commercial premises that need building management systems and HVAC control. But this is where I would focus my time, and the reason I would personally focus here is, well, number one, I find HVAC, BMS very interesting. There's lots of variety and there's lots of things to learn. So yeah, keeps you on your toes. But also it's very good money. I've personally experienced a few inquiries already in the last 6 months to a year, with electrical contractors coming to me asking if I can help them with the control sides of refurbishment projects, particularly in schools. So that's where I would focus my time, but that's not to say that you guys need to do that as well. So sticking with school, BMS and HVAC, just want to go through a couple of examples. So first one being this blog post here, and this is kind of tying back to the grants and investment that we talked about earlier by the government. And you can see this is 500 million specifically being invested into schools, sixth forms and colleges. And you can see that it's specifically, if you go to this blog post and scroll down a little bit, it specifically says about time sensors and controls, and also energy and building management systems. So that's pointing directly to HVAC control and obviously building management systems or building energy management systems. So there's money available for these schools to implement BMS and HVAC, is what I'm trying to say. Second is just an example of a business actually doing this, and I encourage you, if you're interested in HVAC and BMS, is to go visit Intech Controls. They've got a really, really good website just generally, but it talks about how they're implementing BMS into schools and some case studies and some figures around that. In particular, 75% of energy costs in schools comes from the HVAC. So HVAC is heating, ventilation and air conditioning. And 25% of that is wasted. And I see this a lot. Lots of BMS, HVAC systems just aren't optimized properly. So even just going in there and optimizing stuff can save schools a fair bit of money. But yeah, great example of a BMS company doing things really well. So recommend checking out Intech Controls. So hopefully, guys, that's given you some good proof that there's plenty of opportunity out there. So I encourage you to go and have a look at those websites and some of those links, and maybe do a bit of Googling yourself just to really reinforce that fact. But 100% know that there's plenty of opportunity. So now I want to focus on whether it's actually possible. And of course it's possible, and I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you some social proof, people that are actually out there doing it. And some of these people, they don't have formal qualifications. Seriously, they are not, they're helpful, don't get me wrong, but they're not essential. So, examples of real people. So first thing, which you can all do, guys, is visit the Loxon partner map. So actually, if I click here, yes, you can see that, sorry. Yeah, so you can see that there's a good collection of people around the London area who are Loxon partners. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it full time, but gives you a good starting point to see that people are actually doing this. And Loxon you can do all sorts with. Smart home, BMS, and you can also use it for custom and industrial projects as well. Let's have a look over Wales Way. So I just want to get away from the fact that it's not only London and large cities where there is this opportunity. So you can see here, there's some more partners. Let's go up to Birmingham. More partners around here. So hopefully that just gives you a little taste of people, mostly electricians. So bearing in mind I used to work for Loxon for 1.5 years. The majority of their partner network are electricians, domestic electricians, who I've worked with personally. I've supported them from training them all the way through to sort of helping them win and deliver their first project. So I know a lot of these guys personally, and I've worked with them. But 3 people I want to point out to you. So first one being Zach at Smart Home, then Peter at Little Smart Homes, and then also Dan at Wise. So the reason I want to point these guys out is, well, firstly, you can find them all on social media and see that they are real people. They're fairly regular on Instagram. Also got websites, also got pictures. So yeah, it's kind of just to prove that they are real people, and I'm not just waffling on about people that aren't real. They're all Sparks. They all do this full time. I all know them personally. I all know that they're, no offense guys, they're not geniuses. Genius with a J. So they're normal people, just like the rest of us. They're not special or anything. I just want to sort of, yeah, assure you that they're just normal, regular people like the rest of us, and they're doing it full time. And they don't live near big cities. So Zach, he's based in Gloucester. Peter, he's in Belfast. And then Dan, he's in Tring. So commuter distance to London, but he doesn't live in London. I know that he doesn't always do projects. I think he mainly does projects around the home counties. But yeah, so Zach, he was a domestic spark. Peter, he was a maintenance engineer, and again, Dan was a domestic sparks as well. Zach now mainly focuses on smart home developments, and he does a lot of sort of renewables and some custom projects working with universities doing R&D stuff. Peter, he does smart homes and BMS in like hotels, and Dan, he's smart homes and AV. So yeah, all totally possible, and you don't need to be special because these guys aren't, and nor am I, and nor are a lot of the people in the industry if they're honest with themselves. I'm sure a lot of them like to think that they are, but they're not. Second place to have a look is the KNX Partner Find an Integrator website, which I'm not even going to bother trying to get up. You can find it there. I don't know as many of the people over doing KNX, but I do know the guys at Neo Systems because I worked with them for a number of years. And what I did with them was I basically looked after their BMS division, so basically taking BMS projects all the way from concept specification all the way through to doing the design, the build, the commissioning on site and all of that. But the reason I bring up Neo is because Colton, the owner, is not from a technical background. He doesn't have formal qualifications, and he's actually an ex-car salesman. So I just wanted to sort of throw that in there to show you that yeah, you don't need to even have a technical background to do well and progress into these industries. They are based in London though, but hopefully you let me off for that. Myself, so if you wanted to see sort of my background, where I've come from, you can find me on LinkedIn. And then just to touch on some of the qualifications, so I did an engineering apprenticeship, I've done some stuff with Siemens and Pilts, but the two things that have been most valuable in terms of qualifications for me have definitely been 7671 and 2391. So if you are an electrician with those two things under your belt, that's going to really give you a really good head start if you are getting into this industry, because you've got a good grounding already, which you can use to build off. Hang on a sec. Oh, also guys, I've never, in the last, I don't know, 4 years where I've been working more predominantly on my own and doing private jobs, never has a client ever asked me for my qualifications. So I just thought I'd let you know that key point as well. But I do want to point out, I'm not saying qualifications are a bad thing. They can certainly help you get your foot in the door, but ultimately qualifications aren't the thing that's going to keep you in the building, so to speak. If you speak to, I'm sure if you spoke to Zach or Peter or Dan, the things that they're looking for in employees, like if it was employment route you wanted to go down, is what they look for would be things like, you know, the softer skills, things like reliability, dependability, resilience, work ethic, being able to communicate efficiently, and being coachable and enthusiastic and self-motivated. So hopefully that's given you some proof and some real social evidence that it is possible, and as we talked about earlier, that there is opportunity out there. There is a lot of opportunity. So next thing is that stuff that's stopping us from progressing, and these are things that I've certainly felt personally, and I know from speaking to a lot of guys in the industry trying to get into the industry, they feel it as well. So what are those? And this is what I hear a lot. So I don't know where to start, I don't know what system to focus on, and I don't know how to sell. So yeah, all sound very daunting, very overwhelming. Certainly that how to sell is one that I've really sort of struggled with at the start. But don't worry, it's not as bad as it sounds, and I'm going to sort of help you see that, hopefully, in the next few slides. Obviously, though, this is my opinion, and it's all based on my own experiences, obviously based on speaking to people as well. But I'd like to think I've got a fairly unique take on these things, being that I've worked for one of the top manufacturers in the UK, so Loxon for 1.5 years. I've worked in all 3 of the main industries, so smart homes, industrial controls, and BMS and HVAC. I used to work as an electrical controls engineer, which is something we're going to cover in a bit more detail in a second. And I've spoken to a lot of people. My time at Loxon, online, since then on social media, and just generally being in the industry. But of course, it's just my opinion. Take it with a pinch of salt. But this is sort of where I would go with things and how what I'd recommend to people. So the first roadblock, I don't know where to start. Totally understandable. It's there's so much information out there. There's no kind of impartial source or advisors or career path. It's a bit of a minefield out there. But what I'm going to tell you, it's probably going to come as a bit of a surprise. I don't think many people consider this. Again, this is my opinion. This is from my experience. But if I was to start all of this again, the thing that's helped me the most, and what I would encourage you to learn, is electrical controls. And this single thing, just understanding electrical controls, and most of this I learned when I was an electrical controls engineer for R&B Industrial, working in mainly doing industrial ventilation. But this skill has given me like huge variety, enabling me to jump around between industries, because actually it's just a broad skill set that can be applied across all of these industries. It's enabled me to spend less time on site, crawling around in lofts and doing EICRs and occupied rewires, and pulling cables and all of that hard work that when we get to a certain age we don't really want to be doing. So it's enabled me to sort of work more flexibly from home and office based. And ultimately, it's paid me a lot more as well. And I'm going to show you some real figures a bit later around that. So yeah, electrical controls. So if you notice, within these industries, there's, or at least you'll notice from my drawing here, that there's a big overlap. There's an overlap certainly at the heart of all of these industries. And that thing at the centre is that all these industries, they have a control system at the heart of them, and specifically an electrical control system. So the most valuable skill set around that is what we've already mentioned, it's electrical controls. Understanding electrical controls will enable you to understand electrical control systems, and then working our way back, that is what's at the heart of all of these industries. So that's the key skill that will help you the most when it comes to any of those industries. But what makes up electrical controls? And I'd recommend leaning them in this order. Typo there. Learn them in this order. So firstly, electrical schematics. So this is probably the easiest thing to get your hands on. Anyone can get schematics from anywhere. You can find them online, you can find them in control panels and take photos of them. So getting a good understanding of reading electrical schematics, understanding how to interpret them, and ultimately when you do this a few times, you start to build up an idea of how control systems are built and designed. And you'll see the more schematics that you see, there's loads and loads of similarities. They're all pretty much designed in the same way. There's all these, the fundamentals of electrical controls are the same. And then once you start looking at schematics across all these industries, you'll see that they're all the same. So start there. Second thing, once you've got more confident and competent around electrical schematics, then I'd start trying to understand like control panels, how they're laid out, how they're split. And if you want to just look at amazing images of control panels, I recommend you going on LinkedIn and checking out Sigma panels, because Steve there, he's an absolute professional, and he takes really high resolution, detailed images of his control panels. What I used to do is, I know not everyone has this opportunity, but when I was starting out, the way I taught myself was what I do when I'm on site. I would open up any control panel that I could, obviously without switching off the system, and I would take photos of the schematics, I would take photos of the control panel, and then when I got home, you know, there's no pressure, I can sort of spend time looking at the electrical schematics, referencing the control panel photos, because most of the time they're labelled, so you can see visually within the control panel what's in the schematics, and you can build up a really good understanding of the system even better then, and also see how control panels are laid out. So those are the two things I'll start with, and then once you've got that as a good sort of foundation, that's then when I'd start thinking about understanding more about PLCs or programmable logic controllers. So going back, start with electrical schematics. And at the time of recording this, I've got some free training around that, 20-minute video breaking down a school BMS project with a workbook as well that sort of helps you with that video. So yeah, you can find that on my socials. You won't be able to, you shouldn't have to search too hard to find that. So yeah, summary guys, electrical controls. Seriously can't stress this enough. Electrical controls will help you the most when it comes to these three industries. So the second thing, second roadblock, I don't know what system to focus on. Again, completely understand where you're coming from. There's so many out there. There's professional systems, there's off-the-shelf consumer-focused systems like the Internet of Things, like the Ring and the Hive and the Philips Hue and all of that rubbish. There's just so much to choose from. It's very overwhelming, and you don't want to invest time learning a system which isn't then necessarily suited to what you really want to do and where you want to go. And of course, if you ask any of the manufacturers, they say, "Oh yeah, we can do it all. We can do this really well. We can do that really well." But ultimately, you don't know if that is the case. So hopefully, in the next few slides, I'm going to break it down and make it more easier to understand and explain the different types of systems. And then I'll give you a recommendation of where or what system I would focus on at the end of this. So let's break down the systems. So we've got smart homes or smart home systems, and specifically professional systems. I'm not talking about the off-the-shelf rubbish that you have to update or upgrade, or it breaks in a year or two. This is sort of a professional system that you have full control over. Commercial BMS and HVAC systems, and also industrial control systems. So let's start with the professional smart home systems. And how I think about smart home systems is it an AV based system, or is it a BMS/HVAC system? So all the AV based systems like Control 4, Crestron, Savant, ELAN, that's one side, that's one category. They're very good at doing AV based stuff, so audio visual. These are all processor based controllers. and they're all based really off IP networking. So you need a bit of a better understanding of networks if you're going down this route. On the BMS and HVAC side, these are your two main players, so KNX and Loxon, and these are electrical based systems. Ultimately they're PLCs. So next type of control systems are for commercial BMS and HVAC. So these are typically used in schools, hotels, MDU, apartment blocks, large residential, becoming a lot more common these days, cinema, leisure centres, it's an endless list basically. All commercial buildings that have a plant room is where you can implement HVAC and BMS. So loads of opportunity. So you've got your traditional players, and this I'm talking purely about the UK here, which are Trend and Tritium. And then you've also got Schneider and Siemens in that section as well. But it's Trend and Tritium you'll find is the main players in the commercial space in the UK. But you've got new guys coming in, so all of this, exactly the same thing that you can do with all of these traditional guys, you can do with Loxon, you can use with Zenio, with Zenio, and as I mentioned earlier, soon ABB and Cylon. So the next system is systems for industrial controls and instrumentation. Again, huge opportunity in industrial sectors, so like manufacturing, automotive, food and drink, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, etc. Loads and loads of opportunity here, and you've probably heard of most of these guys, so I'm not going to go through all of them. Again, industrial controls and instrumentation industries is a PLC electrical based system. So the system I would recommend, and this is based on, firstly, that you're not interested in going down the AV route, which I salute you for. This is just my opinion, but for me, AV is quite boring. A TV's a TV, a speaker's a speaker. That's it really. I don't really get much personal enjoyment out of that. And like I mentioned earlier, with the PLC electrical based systems, you can see that they apply to more industries than just the AV based systems. But I get why people like AV, certainly like high-end cinemas, they're very impressive. And also the margins you get with AV equipment is pretty phenomenal really. So for an example, if you can sell a 40k projector to a client, you're going to get a 40 to 50% margin on that projector. So from just selling one high-end item, you know, you can make up to 20k on something like a projector. So I can see the attraction. Yeah, this is based on you wanting to use a PLC based system, and you want to be able to use this in any of those three industries, whether it's smart home, BMS or BEMS, and also industrial controls. Before I mention this company, I'm in no way affiliated with them. They really, really wind me up at times, but there's no denying that they've got the most suitable product for what we're talking about here, and that's Loxon. Hands down the best for what we're talking about here, the best system for you guys to start learning and practicing with. Reasons why, mentioned already, PLC based system can be used in smart home, BMS and industrial. It's relatively simple. Of course there's a learning curve, but understanding the system, learning the software, they have focused on making it relatively intuitive and easy. Certainly the programming, there's no ladder logic, which I won't even get into. It's very sort of visual function block based. And then two massive things here is one, that you can download the software free off their website, the programming software and the app for your phone or computer, and anyone can buy their hardware. It's not locked down, which annoys a lot of people. Certainly, if you're trying to make a business out of it, but if you want to learn, locks on free software, and yeah, being able to get stuff off their website and you can see all the prices. Yeah, it's no competition really. It's far. If you try and do that with any of the other players, yeah, you're not going to get very far. Now, I was wondering whether I should do a quick demo of my house. I'm not going to because we're already 45 minutes in. But what I do want to show you quickly is just how easy it is. Actually, I'll just show you quickly what my house looks like here. And also how easy it is to get the software. So downloads, support downloads, and there we go, download. As simple as that. There you go, you've got the software. Software looks like this, and this is my study where we're at the moment. Let's see if you can see. There we go, it's in live view, so you can see the motion sensor triggering when I move my hand. There we go. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time there. This is what it looks like in the app. There we go, study. We're at bright mode at the moment. Off, can you see? Yeah, you can just about see. But yeah, there you go. You can get access to all of that instantly. You can also buy their hardware, partner web shop, and yeah, it's all available there. You can see all the pricing, which is very annoying to some people, but yeah, you can get access to it. Right then, let's continue, guys. Yeah, so to conclude that, if you want one system to focus on that's going to help you with, or is able to, I'll start again. If you want one system that you're going to be able to use for smart home automation, BMS and HVAC, and also industrial controls and other custom projects, Loxon, hands down, is the winner. That's what I would go with. Third and final roadblock, the one that's caused me the most anxiety and discomfort. I don't know how to sell. Yeah, as a relatively introverted person, someone who gets social anxiety from time to time, just the thought of selling really put me out of my comfort zone. You know, the pressure that you would put on yourself to close every sale, the fear of rejection. Trust me, I totally know where you're coming from with this one. And I think that's down to having false beliefs around what salesmanship is. So if you're from the same generation as me, maybe a little bit older, I always thought of sales as either being employed the way that Boise does it, so being very deceitful, manipulative, and cheating people into a sale, or on the other side, being very much like Del Boy and just having that natural charisma, being very extroverted, fun, witty, you know, just someone that people really like. And I don't think hopefully I've got the latter part of that. Hopefully people like me, but certainly, you know, the natural charisma, you know, being extroverted, quick-witted, I certainly don't have that. And I don't want to be that type of salesperson that Boise is. But what I learn is when I was struggling at Loxon, this is the first time I ever experienced having to do sales. This is sort of in my late 20s. What I was struggling with was I didn't actually know the product for the industry. So I felt very much like Lloyd from Dumber and Dumber here. Was struggling, just very, very uncomfortable for me, certainly starting out. So that forced me, out of desperation, to start trying to get myself out of that uncomfortable situation and start getting better at sales. So I started consuming lots of sales material. And within all of those pieces of material, whether it was like online training, whether it was books, whether it was podcasts, audiobooks, etc., the two things that I always think about when I think about sales are these two books. So How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This is a classic. And then also The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. These two books, whether you read them or listen to them in audio form, these two books really, really helped me, made me feel so much more comfortable with the whole idea of sales and selling to people. And ultimately they taught me what real salesmanship is about, and I want to share that with you. So good sales, being a good salesperson, firstly is understanding that the prospect needs to be in the market to buy. Like, you can't sell a Tesla to someone who's only got a budget of $2,000. It's just not going to happen. So that's the first thing, is making sure people are actually able to buy and willing to buy and want to buy. Secondly, it's having empathy for the prospect. So just thinking about if they were your nan or your mum or family member or someone that you cared a lot about, you want to help them make the best buying decision for them. And if your service or product doesn't work for them, it's just saying, okay, well, I don't think that's going to work, and you can both go your separate ways, and that's totally okay. And that removes that sort of that overarching pressure and self-imposed pressure to close the sale. So thirdly, it's all about asking questions and listening, really, to find out if it is a good fit for that client, if you can help them. And as a sort of an introvert, I'm very much sort of in the middle of introvert, extrovert. But for introverted people, this is a massive advantage here. I'm far more comfortable asking questions of people and listening to them than I am talking about myself or talking in general. So once I learned that really gave me a massive confidence boost, that I can just ask questions and listen. And that's actually really good for sales. And that's not taken away from, people like Del Boy, with that natural charisma and wit and just being a sort of generally sort of fun guy. That's a different way to do it, and that's fine. But there is a way to sell as an introvert, as a more sort of shy, socially anxious person, and that's by asking questions and listening. And then finally, and this is a big one, once I realised that actually I need to know what I'm talking about, learned the hard way. Once I realised this, I was very much focused on learning as much as I could about locks-on, so I didn't have that feeling of that uncomfortable feeling of not being able to answer questions. You can't be expected to know everything, and it's all right to take notes and say, I'm really sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Let me write it down and I will get back to you. But you can't do that for every question. You need to know sort of 80 to 90% of what you're selling. So that's the final and very important thing is product knowledge, understanding what you're selling. So hopefully that helps you feel a bit more confident around the idea of selling. And actually, selling comes later. You need to sort of build up that knowledge and that confidence. Maybe, like I mentioned, run through some sales training or books just to get more comfortable around the idea, so you really understand what sales is. But in a nutshell, what it is, it's just a friendly, empathetic, helpful conversation to help someone make the right buying decision. That's all it is. And if you think about it like that, it just takes the pressure off. And not everyone's going to buy, and that's fine.